NATO has yet to produce a full account of how refugee convoys came to be attacked 2 days ago. At its daily briefing, it didn't show the cockpit video that exists of the incidents and said it had no new information. Brian Hanrahan on NATO's response to the killing of the people it's promised to protect.
From the mountains ringing Kosovo, observers can see the smoke coming from burning villages, which continues to send convoys of refugees fleeing for safety. There's a glimpse of a Serb military vehicle, while an F-16 fighter patrols overhead. It was from just this kind of situation earlier this week that NATO bombed a vehicle full of refugees. Today, NATO was fending off calls for more information.
What we know about our air attack, we told you yesterday. For the rest, we know nothing more of what I told you yesterday.
I find it absolutely impossible to believe that you know nothing about...
But repeated questioning produced neither details nor the cockpit video of the attack.
We are investigating, so for the time being, the tape won't be provided.
NATO accepts responsibility for accidentally attacking refugees north of Jagovica, but pressed about another attack on the main road south of Jagovica, it says carefully there's no indication of NATO involvement. At the scene of that attack, markings on a piece of shrapnel were noted by a BBC correspondent. They are consistent with the markings on a standard 1,000-pound NATO bomb. But the latest pictures from the road itself don't seem to show the kind of damage that a large bomb blast would cause. NATO says there have been examples of the Serbs attacking refugees and has come close to suggesting that Serb forces are responsible for this.
We have, on this particular instance, only indications in one situation, which is the one described to you yesterday by the General, of where we would have hit a civilian vehicle. For the others, I think you should seek your explanation in Belgrade as much as you should at NATO headquarters, and I hope you will do so.
Despite the controversy, NATO is pressing on with its campaign. Another bridge over the Danube, the 9th, has been blown up. NATO says better weather led to extensive engagements across the entire country, with a range of targets from military forces in Kosovo to oil refineries in the north. NATO aircraft also attacked a military base and an airfield in Montenegro, Serbia's reluctant partner in the Yugoslav Federation. NATO says it won't be deflected from stopping Milosevic. Brian Hanrahan, BBC News.
Mark Leahy is at NATO headquarters in Brussels. Mark, NATO still doesn't seem to have got its story straight over what happened to these refugee convoys, has it?
No, we've got the confirmation about what happened north of Đakovica, and as far as they're concerned, that's done. What's happened is we know there were NATO air attacks on military convoys south of Đakovica, but there's a suggestion that they could have missed or had other problems, and that is where they're still waiting for clarity. Now, I understand there was a bit of a military political dispute today, and in the end, extra information was not displayed because it was felt it didn't have enough detail. So there's still more information to come out on this one, and we may well in the end see the cockpit video. But yes, they admit that they've got themselves in a muddle and they have to sort it out. And indeed, the Prime Minister's press secretary was here today to actually help advise NATO on future news operations.
Another huge exodus of refugees, pitiful refugees today, and terrible evidence emerging of these massacres. What's the atmosphere like in Brussels? Is there a sense of powerlessness there?
I think there's a sense of frustration and anger. They very much say that whatever they've done accidentally and should be put in context with the scenes we're now seeing. And they say they're doing all they can. They're attending the refugees who do come over, and they're prosecuting the air campaign as fast as they can. And the last few days have been extremely successful for them. They say winning the war is the only answer, and that could be a long war yet, months maybe.
The United Nations Refugee Agency says the Serbs have started a new wave of ethnic cleansing and will soon have driven all the Albanians out of Kosovo. The exodus of refugees has reached new levels. 12,000 have fled in the past 24 hours. More than 3/4 of Kosovo's Albanian population are now believed to be in exile in Montenegro, Macedonia and Albania. And thousands more refugees are trying to flee. Jeremy Bowen reports from Marina, a crossing point on the Albanian border.
This evening, thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of Kosovo Albanians are trying to get to a place where it's safe. For these people, the only way out was across the high mountains into Montenegro, still in Yugoslavia, but a sort of sanctuary. This man is saying he's too tired to go on. The weak are trying to help family and friends who are weaker still. There'll be miles more walking before they can get any proper medical care. The pattern's always the same. A few minutes to pack and then they have to go, no matter how old or defenseless they are. Homes, whole villages are burnt behind them. Thousands more people have been driven out into Albania. Serbia's program of forced deportations has moved on to the town of Mitrovica, from which most of these people came. They said that as they left, their houses were set on fire.
The town is all on fire. I don't think that exists one house that is not on fire.
And the people, the Albanian people?
The Albanian people all are coming, like you see.
At least 50,000 people lived in Mitrovica. Perhaps another 50,000 lived in the villages around it. The refugees crossing today said it looked as if the vast majority of them were being driven from their homes. Most haven't arrived yet. Ramadan Ademi said everything Albanian is burning. He said the NATO bombing campaign has come too late. At the final Serb checkpoint, the last of their Yugoslav documents and their car number plates are taken away from them. Belgrade's deportation plan doesn't include a way back. These are defenseless people. This woman is 100 years old. They know she's called Hamida, but not what happened to her family. Aid workers gave them food as they arrived. They'll have to accept many more handouts before they're able to provide for their own children again.
I've been here about 4 or 5 hours now, and the people have just kept on coming. I'm running out of words to describe how these people have suffered, except to say that it's cruel, brutal, inhumane, and criminal. We've seen it far too many times since the Yugoslav wars started in 1991.
As they moved off, one refugee said, "Even God has abandoned us."
The Greek Prime Minister has accused NATO of worsening the situation inside Kosovo and of strengthening Slobodan Milosevic. Greece is among the most hesitant of NATO's 19 members in supporting the airstrikes. It shares religious ties with Serbia and is worried the conflict will spread through the Balkans. Fergal Keane in Athens on opposition there to the NATO bombing campaign.
A belligerent message for NATO in the capital city of a member state. Anti-war and pro-Serb feeling is growing here. Some march because they fear the conflict will spread south to Greece, others because of historical ties between Serbs and Greeks.
They're killing innocent people and without reason. They don't find a solution. No solution.
In the Greek press, the war is presented as a clash between a bullying NATO and a victimized Serbia. That is quite simply how many people here see it. Among those who's been critical of NATO is the mayor of Athens. He's met Slobodan Milosevic on several occasions and says the West doesn't understand him.
So right now he's conducting a patriotic war for his nation. I think that if all means of dialogue had been exhausted, an agreement would have been reached with Milosevic.
Do you believe in essence that if the military campaign is escalated, the war could spill over into countries like Greece?
War is like a disease. It's contagious.
Ministers know that NATO would dearly like to be able to use Greek territory for its war against the Serbs. That will not be allowed.
We hope, therefore, that there is not going to be an escalation, that we would not reach the point where ground forces would be needed. There is, we do believe, still time to work for a negotiated agreement based on the principles which we all share.